Okay, so first match complete, and it is already 1-0 up to the European side. That seemed to be fairly dominating, Tali. I don't know what your thoughts were in terms of how the Europeans really managed to lock down that map, capturing almost all 3 control points for a significant portion of the time.
Yeah, I think that's probably the end winning is they had all 3 points for far too long. It seemed like they had them for at least a minute, so that's really going to hamper the other team.
And not only that, but the Europeans were also going in for the kills on a regular basis as well. They weren't just hanging around. They were really starting to really take down the US as soon as they tried to sniff anywhere near any of the control points.
Yeah, I think that's the main tactic would be just to protect your drones for as long as possible.
Okay, we're going to get ready for match 2 now. Okay, so we're back again with match 2. And again, this looks like a control point map. So you can see from the screen, first of all, when you get the launch tube sequence, which is what you see at the start of the match, you can see how the 2 teams are being laid out. And if you look at the player has a panel down in front of them where you've got A, B, and C, and the 2 levels for resource counts. That gives you an indicator that, again, this is a control point map, and the 2 bars let you know how the 2 teams are doing in their progress for the match. The match starts off, and none of the points are controlled. 1-5 racing off to point A, sees that it's being easily dominated, so he's off to point B. Charging out there.
As a question for, obviously, because I'm a noob at this, how does what does holding the control points actually do in terms of winning the match? Does it deplete their resources while you kill them, or does it deplete their resources more?
It depletes their resources more. So both teams start off with 100 resources, and as they get blown up and need a new ship, that resource counter goes down by 1. But if you hold control points, that resource counter goes down more quickly. So if you can hold all 3 control points, they will start running out of ships, and then you can start picking them off, and they will just run out of ships completely. They won't be able to launch anything new, and as soon as that counter hits 0, it's game over.
As someone in the event screen is asking, they seem to have a lot of control over the speed that they move at, and he says, is it toggled faster and slower, or is there throttles? Or
so there is a throttle. However, you tend to fly at a constant speed unless you gun the velocity, which expires after a certain period of time. If you look at the pilots on the right-hand side of their screen, there's usually a velocity meter. You can see that on Quantum Delta's ship here. As he guns the throttle, that velocity meter will creep up, but then the capacitor, which is on his left-hand side, will start to go down. That means that he only has a certain amount of throttle. You can also brake as well. So if you're trying to pull a sharp turn, you can hit the brake, pivot, and then really gun the accelerator to go flying out of that curve. One of the things that you need to do as a pilot is to master your balance of throttle and brake to really try and maximize the use of your capacitor. If you can't do that, then you won't have as much control over the pivot, so you can't get those tight turns, move around someone, get behind them, and start taking them down.
Yeah, and again in the stream chat, Skull Splitter's asking, is there a strafe forward, back, left, and right?
It's more of a roll left and right. You've got a toggle on the left and right trigger, which will roll the ship left and right. But you can also turn left and right as well. So it's less of a strafe and more of a kind of roll. Overall, though, Valkyrie is much more of a kind of arcadey experience to a pure flight sim. It's designed to be very quick to get into, but having a lot of deep control there for you to master if you really want to try and get the most out of the ships. So with this match, we're seeing a lot more even pacing. We're looking at Robot 2K this time. Again, flying with Fatal, although his team actually managing to get what looks like both control points. So it looks to be a lot more even matched this time. So I don't know if they've adjusted their team composition to try and cope with what the European team were throwing at them, but it looks like it's going to be much closer.
Yeah, it's I think they're pretty much neck and neck. There's only maybe 2 or 3 difference. Back to the control point. Just to explain it, the way the devs explained it to me is in Valkyrie, whenever you bank upwards, you always turn faster than if you try and just turn left and right. So it's actually better for the ship to get banked in a particular direction to turn that direction.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There's a lot of hidden depth in the control sequences for Valkyrie.
I'd also like to point out that it's very responsive when you're playing it. The watching the stream just now just doesn't give it justice, in my opinion, for when you're actually sitting there playing it. It's just so immersive, and you really get into the sounds of the ship, which you can't really hear just now. But whenever you're boosting or slowing down, the sounds of the ship change. It's very interesting and really helps with the immersion of it.
Yeah, definitely. Also, the ships have 2 health bars. One which is the shields, which you'll see running up the left-hand side of the kind of ship canopy, and then one is the actual armor, which runs up the right-hand side of the canopy. You can see here with 1.5, his ship almost has full shields, but the health you can see on the left there is very low. He's actually getting a health beam from a support ship, so it does look like the Europeans are running with at least one support ship with a heal beam. Whenever you see that kind of hexagon style mesh appearing over a ship and it gets bathed in a blue light, that means that ship's being healed and the armor is gradually being repaired.
Also, another interesting note is your team is always friendly, is always blue, and your opposition's always red, regardless of what side you're in. So you'll always be able to tell the difference. For example, 1.5 getting.
Okay. That's an incredibly close match.